Hello and welcome to Webcomic Firstish, the whenever I can get around to it show where I, the comic archivist, read the first few bits of a webcomic and then talk about it as though I know something. This is audio only for the most part, so you can listen to my thoughts while doing other things, like playing Far Cry 5's latest DLC. Yeah, that's been eating up a lot of my time. Today, I'm not actually going to cover a new webcomic. I know I'm a monster, but how many times can I actually praise a Webby on Webtoons for free, huh? Yes, that's a bad joke. Anyways, I'm actually going to look at one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite webcomic that I actually haven't really seen anyone talking about in the last decade. That, of course, is Something Positive by R.K. Milholland. I know what probably everyone who's a subscriber to me is thinking right now. What the hell is that? I don't know why you guys kind of sound like Gilbert Gottfried, but hey, if you are seeing this because you're a fan of Something Positive, right on, my brothers and sisters. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure how to cover this. Usually for this show, I read the first 18 pages or so of a Webby and then talk about it. But I've been reading this comic for a very, very long time now. How long? Well, it started in 2001, but I stumbled upon it in 2004 or 5, and I devoured it until 2011 when I hit a very bad patch in my life and just did not have the ability to. But recent years, I've actually started catching up on the literal tons of stuff that I've missed up to this point. So while I did say in the opener that I usually don't do pictures, let's go with probably the most divisive thing I've seen about these comics. Are you ready? You sure? It is a bit dark. Okay, there you go. The very first page of Something Positive is making a joke about Davin, that's the guy there, sending a wire hanger to his ex-girlfriend as a baby shower gift. I know that me finding that hilarious instantly turned some people off of this channel entirely, but that's the rub, isn't it? Humor is subjective, and many people no longer feel that dark comedy is a viable means for enjoyment. But to that I call bull. Comedy can be crass, and dark, and even toe-tappingly tragic at points. It's what makes the human experience a little more bearable. If you disagree, I'm not really sorry. You can have your opinions as I can have mine. More good has come from a film like Blazing Saddles than using huge air quotes here, a rom-com like The Ugly Truth. Yes, those are extreme examples, cause not everyone is Mel Brooks. Okay, I'm done with that rant. Back to gushing about Something Positive. The art for this never become really super spectacular awesome, comparable to something like modern webcomics where you have a lot more people trying to have the manga influence or have the super details in there to make it look beautiful and or different or unique and all that. But it's never needed to be. The art style comes off very much like a comic strip, and when this came out, that was basically what webcomics were, and arguably what they still are. Good art can be simple, clean, and yet still make you laugh when you see a main character tied to a cross for a public access musical. Yeah, the storylines in this thing are kind of interesting like that. The art does evolve to be a bit more sharper and a bit more detailed, but never something like a flagship comic book. It's just fantastic art without trying to rely on the art. So it's a dark comedy with good art. Why has it held on to me for so long? Well, the comedy is just great, but there are hard times that there's really no comedy in it. There's a lot of story that gets shoved into this. The main characters have lives that shift and evolve. Reading the first year and then checking out the latest update, the development of these characters is just so grand. It may be a comedy for the most part, but because this is a highly serialized thing with multiple parts to a ton of stories, so you can have a story where you have a character screaming, "Bukkake for justice!" and then have a very deep cathartic character moment at a friend's funeral. And none of that has ever felt out of place, because maybe the best thing to call this isn't a comedy. Maybe the best thing to call it is a slice-of-life comic from the perspective of sarcastic and semi-violent nerds. Yes, I'd like that to be the quote on the cover of any hard copies that come out. It is hard to give a verdict for when I'm talking about a webcomic that's been out a long, long time, because it can feel like a daunting task, but truthfully, this series is totally worth this verdict. Support it. Support it means that you should obviously read every update since the beginning, but stay active in keeping up with it, following the creator on Twitter, and even if you can, donate to him where you can. But that is where I end this episode for today. If you agree, disagree, or just want to talk about something positive, then leave a comment below. While you're down there, let me know what you'd like to see on the next Webcomic Firstish, Binging on Comics Reader History, and any of the other shows I have on this channel. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and please consider supporting our Patreon. It helps us and the creators we do support. But even just sharing and subscribing is a great free way to help. We're still far off from that 1K sub we need to get remonetized. Regardless of all that, I'm the Comic Archivist. Stay golden, Inklings.